Hi, it's David from Ready, Set, Go Adventures, and welcome to Adventure Live. We're here today to talk with Triathlete Pro Steve Croucher. Thank you so much for joining us. For everybody, if you haven't already, please like and follow the Ready, Set, Go Adventures Facebook page. Check out the website, sign up to the newsletter, and we will be adding to our YouTube channel, so you subscribe to that as well. A version of this interview will be on that as well. So with no further ado, welcome, Steve. You come with many years of experience, first as an amateur, now as a pro in the off-road triathlon community. You've done exceptionally well at Way Over Yonder and many other races. So maybe you can start with talking a little bit about your background and your experience and how you came to the sport and to where you are today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, David. Pretty excited to do something other than read or work on my bikes this time of year. So this is great.
Yeah, bike maintenance is perfect these days.
Yeah, it's so clean right now. No, it's been certainly a journey. Like you said, there's been some highs in there recently, past couple 2-3 years that are just the product of hard work and kind of following the plan and doing what I'm supposed to be doing, taking care of my body throughout the year and trying to be mindful during the off season and, just racing hard and just really getting after the sport. So yeah, hard work definitely has gotten me to where I am today. I think, like you said, the past couple of years have been super fruitful from a success standpoint, if you want to call like wins and losses and podiums and all that, a measure of success. I think back in 2017, wasn't that the first time that you hosted Xterra Way Over Yonder?
Yeah, so 2017 was the first year.
Yeah.
Obviously now we're in year 4, and it's now the USA National Championship for Off-Road Tri or Cross Tri. So it's come a long way, and a lot of it has to do with support from racers like yourself and the racing community, having the, wanting to check it out and getting involved and staying with it, and it's grown, and obviously it's taken notice by USA Triathlon and throughout the country. So I'm really excited. I mean, we have people from over 30 states coming this year, and pre-registration is ready. Be remiss without saying that originally, obviously, it was May 16th. With everything going on with the situation, we've moved it to September 13. So maybe you want to talk a little bit about that change and kind of what do you think that means for an athlete like yourself and for other athletes to have that new date?
Yeah. The May 16th, racing in New Jersey in those waters when, you might be brimming 60 degrees for water temps, and where the air temperature isn't much warmer, if that. It definitely adds another level of challenge, that's for sure. The mental side of things has to come race day to just say, I'm going to be cold pretty much this entire race. And you're just kind of praying for sunshine. Yeah. So, the move from May 16th, and I think it's always hovered right around there from 2017 when you guys started, kind of that mid-May, right before Memorial Day weekend.
Very consistent. Yep. That's our slot. Actually, we already have the 2021 is going to be May 15, 2021. So
nice. Yeah, I think it's definitely one of the earlier races on the East Coast that people got excited about. I know there were quite a few people that before the date move, like from Quebec, especially, that, kind of Xterra Quebec, they've got a couple races up there that
sure.
Francois de Saligny, I think he, if I pronounce that right, he took 4th place last year in Xterra Way Over Yonder, and yep. He is the race director for Xterra Bromont, Xterra Quebec, and just an awesome dude. I think he's in his 40s too. He's definitely laying down some power in his older years.
He's a force, and it is something. I mean, as myself being a race director and still competing, and it is a balancing act. I mean, I used to joke that I'd say, okay, I'd get through my race and then my training can start. I obviously don't have that luxury this year. So,
Yeah.
so it changes it a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So there was kind of a big contingent. I know Xavier, Plouffe was coming down, potentially Carlos Chang, like good, solid racers who were interested in coming to kind of the May 16th date. But with that changing now, I think you've also opened up a bunch of opportunity for people to, enjoy New Jersey during the height of summer. Warmer temps. It's going to definitely be, hot, mid 80s, I'm sure, in September at that point. And, trail condition wise, I've got to believe that, you're not going to have the same kind of muddy mess that, certain sections are notorious for early season.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
But, that's not to take away from the awesome water crossings that are on the bike and the run, particularly the run, that are infamous. And, you're going waist deep in certain sections if you miss your foothold, which that adds the level of excitement. I had a lot of fun like that last year when we added that water crossing.
Yeah, that was exceptional. I mean, you had actually a current moving the water, but there's other years where that's dry and all you have is a rock bridge. So it really depends. I mean, that's part of the nature of or the nurture of even doing off-road tri is that the course is going to change each year in various ways, and it is all conditions racing. Certainly we saw that in 2018. That was a really tough day where it was kind of like racing in a monsoon. And people still did it and had an amazing time. And it was a testament to the perseverance of athletes. And really what all this is about. I mean, when we started Race Set Go and started the Xterra Way Over Yonder, it was about a dream about bringing something really special and unique to the New York City region, to the East Coast. And personally, I created the type of race that I wanted, that I felt was missing a really tough challenge. And I think that's part of why it's got its reputation. And you've done obviously extremely well. You had a third place in 17. And then when the last 2 years, and then particularly last year, you had almost a 10-minute gap on the second place person, which is, I congratulate you. A fantastic run. And then obviously this year you've now gone pro, which seems like the proper legacy or the proper transition with all the changes that you've had in your life. So you have a lot going on. Maybe we'll come back to the race course itself in a minute, but maybe we want to talk about, since, quite a few of our racers, even it being a nationals, this is going to be their first off-road triathlon, their first cross tri. And you had your first one, I think, back in 2012. I guess you were probably living in the Valley area. Maybe you can talk about that experience as a first time off-road and how you pulled together your experience from, obviously swim was a big part of your growing up, we talked about, but maybe you can touch on that and that whole thing about, from a first timer perspective, what should they be looking at and thinking about and preparing for mentally and physically, and, just some tips and tricks.
Yeah. Throwing the kitchen sink at me there.
I do that sometimes.
Yeah. I think probably it would help frame things a bit better if I just kind of real quick touched on like how I got into the sport. Is, just growing up, I was always active doing something, whether it was soccer season or swim season, or, I got into track my senior year. I played volleyball for a year, I just didn't like to sit around. So I was always involved somehow, but never mountain biked. I think I tried mountain biking, crashed, and was petrified, in my young teens. My dad tried convincing me forever to trail run. And I remember there was this place in York, Pennsylvania, like super flat, maybe had 500 elevation gain over the course of like 6 miles. And like back then he was super into trail running and he tried getting me to go. And I was like, this is the worst thing in the world. I only did it because he wanted me to, I didn't really, like we got caught out in a thunderstorm and like this tree almost fell on it. Like it was chaotic, and I never really had an interest. So anyway, so I went to college, Ithaca College, and swam there for 4 years, and had some really pretty decent success, like at a regional Division III school level, and moved out as part of like an internship to Vail, Colorado, and I worked for the Vail Recreation District. I worked for the Vail Resort Company, and just in some of those experiences, I kind of connected with some really, really active people.
Right.
Same kind of mentality, just always on the go and trying to like find, value in their like hour or half hour lunch break or whatever, whether it was walking their dog on the trails or it was a trail run after as the sun's going down, or it's like these epic 4 or 5 hour mountain bike adventures on the weekend. Like that got me hooked because other people were doing it. Right. And I needed something beyond just swimming. I had done that for 15, 16 years. Like I needed more than just the pool.
Kind of morphed. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it kind of all started, racing Xterra was, there's, kind of a pretty famous Xterra in the Vail Valley called Xterra Beaver Creek.
Yep.
And I had a friend that I can't remember if she signed me up without me knowing and said, you're racing this, or said,
don't you love friends like that though? Like those are the best friends. Like, all right, here's something crazy and stupid. I want to do it. By the way, you're doing it too, and go.
Yeah. However it worked out, she might have even said like, I don't think you can do it. And of course I was hooked on the idea of doing it.
Right.
And I think I did that whole race like in a Speedo, or it was like I did the Xterra sprint, Beaver Creek sprint. So
right. Great way to start. Yeah.
Yeah. The sprint level is typically, half the distance of your Olympic distance or your championship level race. The off-road race that you're putting on, David, with the USAT off-road championships in September, that, is an Olympic distance race.
Yeah. So we do have a sprint as well, just for that reason, because we want the opportunity for beginners or intermediate, because you still have to have mountain biking chops. And it's about half, it's a little bit less than half, I guess, really, to have the experience. And then maybe they'll come back next year, the following in 2021, and do the full course, And I think that is, our goal is always to encourage participation. That's why we also have a duathlon and a paddle tri, and even offer a relay. Like if there's a really great mountain biker and he doesn't really want to swim or run, him or her, then great, form a relay team. So I think that's the key, is giving access. And I think like yourself, and I did the same thing. I did a local race and got hooked. And I think that's exactly what happens. I think you're spot on there.
Yeah. And I think Xterra is not, or cross triathlon, off-road racing, sure, isn't the most, if you had to compare apples to apples with road triathlon and off-road or cross triathlon together, sure, I would put all of my eggs in the road triathlon basket of it being far more beginner friendly. Everybody has access to, if they wanted to train, to pavement, or most everybody, right, does. Like, pools that's negated, or open water that's negated, because that's the same in both sports. And I think it's more attractive to run on like city streets or sidewalks or, roads than it is to like travel 30, 40, 50 minutes away to get to single track or double track or, off-road. So anyway, I think to pull people in, you need to make it just unbelievably exciting but also manageable. And so when I did that first race in Beaver Creek, you're at 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 vertical feet, of elevation starting. Yeah. And so you're sucking wind just to begin the race. And, you've got a 3,000 foot climb. Like you've got it's a very challenging course. So to do the sprint level where, it's half the distance, like even that was a bear for me mentally. So just finishing was pretty important. But as soon as I crossed that line, it was like, okay, when's the next?
Right.
Like, how do I sign up? So I definitely think that Xterra, once you take that leap of faith, it may take more to like register and do your first one. But once you do it, it's game over.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
you're just hooked.
yeah. And I think, like I said, it's anyone that experiences it, and it is very different. There are definitely some challenges to train for it, to get to it. Equipment's different. You have to have some mountain biking chops, obviously. But I agree. I think the whole experience is a very different type of challenge. And I think that's very similar. I mean, I look at my transition morph too, from a road biker to a mountain biker, and then said, what's this? And you're right. And once I discovered, the full off-road cross tri concept, absolutely loved it. Anything that you'd suggest, I mean, for a first timer that, anything key that you'd say, hey, going into this race, whether they're doing the sprint or they're going full out and jumping into the championship, anything that you'd suggest, any key things you could think of?
Do you mean like if this is your first time, like would you go?
Yeah, I mean just some things, either because it's the first time and or because of this course, maybe at a top level, and then maybe we can dive into the course itself, since obviously you have a lot of experience with that as well.
Yeah, if this is your first time doing a cross triathlon, even if you've done road events in the past, and I want to real quick say that in no way, shape, or form do I think that like road triathletes are any less, hardcore or aggro or like can just get after it.
Oh, there's some amazing athletes all across the board, no doubt.
Yeah, I think it's this style of race that pulls different people, different personalities to it. So anyway, I would highly recommend, if this is your first off-road event, is to definitely go with the sprint, only because, David, I know that you and I have talked about it before, and a lot of people know how I feel about your course. Is like, it is satisfyingly challenging, right? So like, you're going to go and do it. You're going to get rocked around on a whole bunch of rock gardens. You've got the super fast hard parts where you're just laying down wattage on some of those double track roads, and during the climb to get to the first single track. Then you've got some spots where it's like you have to just navigate extremely nimbly to get through sections. I think it's one of the more challenging off-road triathlon events that I've attended, certainly in the US, and I've done a couple races internationally. So I would put it up there in at least the top two, no question. I definitely had to prepare my mind a bit differently going into your races than other races.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the challenge definitely makes it such that like you would want to try the sprint your first time. And if you've done other off-road events in the past and you've never tried, the Way Over Yonder course, like, be prepared to be humbled by that terrain. New Jersey rock is not forgiving.
No, not at all. I mean, I think, and thank you for the kudos. It was designed as a champion course, ship course, as a challenge. Basically combining. It's a tough mount. I've raced it as a mountain biker, as many others have for many years. Adding the swim before it and the trail run, it's definitely challenging. And if I think about it, you did the course in under 2:15 last year. It's a longer course now because it's meeting USA Triathlon Championship guidelines. So it's now a 1,500 swim. It's a 30K, almost 19 miles mountain bike, and then it's over a 10K on the run. So people, I mean, the winner's probably going to be around 240, 245. There's going to be people out there 4+ hours. There's no question, because it is going to be challenging. And, it's not a course where, the mountain bike section alone will probably take most people 2.5 hours, just the mountain bike section, to do sub 19 miles. Maybe you want to go to, I know you had pulled up the map. Maybe you want to share your screen and talk to some highlights on the course, some key areas. You can give some recommendations on how to attack some of the course.
Yeah, so like I said, just the challenge level it's there. Even for the most experienced mountain bikers, and that's certainly not me. I just kind of picked it up past 5-6 years.
Sure.
And I'm certainly a bit more driven from a power standpoint than a technical standpoint, although I will let anybody know that I have been working on that. Don't rule that out.
Sure.
When we race together here shortly. But, you really do have some unbelievably fast sections and just spots where you're crawling in order to ride it cleanly. So, if I had any kind of just major recommendation, is just to don't look down at your power meter or your output. Really at that point, you're racing based on feel and just trying to race cleanly.
Right.
I think the cleaner you ride this course in particular versus the run, the cleaner you ride it, the better you stand to come in with a decent time. So, yeah, I mean, you're basically looking at a couple, 2 miles up to your first single track point. So you can kind of use that couple minute period to, shake off the swim and hopefully pass some people, because it's super wide open pavement sections all the way up to that Black Eagle single track entrance.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, I mean, you're basically looking at some very punchy technical riding, and it doesn't stop there. Because I think it's Plymouth Lane, or is it Banker, where it's just you're going through some bridge work. That's
Plymouth. Yeah, that's Plymouth, where it's with all the bridges and right. You got to navigate all the foliage. The trail twists and turns a lot, and right, you have all those bridges that ideally you roll over, and it was all rideable. But again, if you're not experienced to the mix of tech and bridge, I tell people at the start, look, anywhere in the course, if it's just too darn challenging, it's a cross-country race. It's okay to jump off the bike and run those sections. So in some cases, that's faster. It really takes confidence in your ability and getting a feel for it. One good thing is the race now is on a Sunday. So while we do not recommend anyone riding the whole course on a Saturday before the event, I'm sure you concur on that, Steve. But if you get out there, if you're in the area Thursday, Friday, a couple of days early, the course, will be up. The GPX is up on the website, and we certainly can point you to certain sections to test out and get a feel. And that's definitely one of them. That Plymouth Lane section is really a good one to get a feel for.
Yeah, I think you're right. Is if you can ride that particular section clean without a foot down and just stay upright and moving, you kind of pass that first test, and then you get I think it's is it Banker? Is it the Turkey Ridge?
Yeah, that's mostly Fire Road. We're actually changing up a little bit of that. Actually, if you look across from the aid station, there's actually some single track. We're going to add a little more single track. So there's going to be a slight tweaking to this course, because what we found is that area that says to Turkey Ridge on the bottom, which is Old Coal. Unfortunately, it seems like that just always stays wet. In mapping out and designing the course, it was a great connector to get you up to Turkey Ridge and get you to Pines. We're going to change it up and use some of that single track in between. It'll still lead to Turkey, and you'll still be going up Pines on the far left corner of the map there. And obviously that Pines section is another nice, it's a nice climb, a little bit techy. I love it because it's like all of a sudden you've been transported to being in California, right? With all the pine needles down, and that's one of the beauties of the Way Honda State Park is that you have a changing dynamic across the trail system, that you're going to have different experiences of what you're riding on as if you're in different parts of the world, which is really kind of a neat thing in one trail net.
Yeah, that's for sure. And Pines is fairly steep. There's sections there where it's probably best to just throw down in your granny gear or your next little ring is like, just maintain forward momentum, because you'll get a chance to fly down some stuff,
Yep.
And the race is long, that mountain bike course, you can try all you want to like pin it for 60 straight minutes and red line and just go to total gas, but you will not make it through the full mountain bike course. And then you've got to run after that. So
yeah.
It is a smart race. You got to play to your strengths, but again, clean riding is super important.
Yeah.
You're adding the section this year, it looks like, where you're running down bridges back like towards the northeast, and then you're coming almost in the same opposite direction to the southwest on Laurel Pond. So that definitely adds your couple extra miles to get it to
Right.
the
It's
USAT
definitely a little bit
distance.
longer. Like I said, went from about 14 to about 18.6, almost 19 miles. What I did want to point out is, if you look where on the bottom left there, or a little bit past, so you obviously do Pines to Tombstone, and Tombstone is a nice flowy, pretty fast course. And then you turn back onto I guess that's Turkey there. But Pickle this year is in reverse, as is the White Lookout Trail. It's the reverse of what we've done the last 3 years to connect it to the rest of the network. And that's already a very challenging. I don't know if you remember Pickle, but that was the one right along the lake. And that throws everything at you. It's twisty. There's rock work. There's logs. That one's a really, really tough one to get through. And then the Lookout Trail has some real punchy, hard climbs. There's one section most people are going to have to run up, because it's not long, but it's steep and it's got rock. So that's going to be a very challenging area, and that would be one of the other key areas that we recommend that someone checks out. And again, one of the things you'll see is that Laurel Pond Trail and the Cherry Ridge kind of bisect the park, so you can access it, so you can ride certain sections and do like a smaller loop to get a feel without doing the whole course. And again, we're highly, we had some people that did the whole course the day before the event. I'm sure you'd agree that that's not a good recommendation. You're going to use up way too much energy doing that and be sore because of the challenge, right?
Yeah.
And then right. So then we're going through Twin Bridges, which is, it's still got some stuff there. It's a lot more relaxed, but it is some good single track. And then having to go up Laurel Pond and then into Sitting Bear. So maybe we want to talk about Sitting Bear and Wing Dam, because that's the other section that goes alongside the way beyond the lake.
Yeah, if you get a chance to pre-ride the course, I would definitely do that particular section at least. If you had to pick a section to pre-ride and you only had 30 minutes or 45 minutes, do that, because you're not only seeing it on the bike, but you're seeing it on the run. It does double. And it goes in the same direction. So once you get a hang for like what that looks like, you've basically seen a good third of the run course in the same direction of travel. So, Sitting Bear, there is some real challenge from a switchback and a punchiness standpoint, but there's a water crossing. There are some really, really big rock gardens that I think if you've done this course in the past, like that's the particular rock garden that you're thinking back to. Some people again, if you ride it clean, you've kind of won that section. And then Wing Dam, is just kind of like a joyride back to the transition area. Like, enjoy that, because the view of Yonder Lake is pretty breathtaking.
And we're back. This is David from Ready, Set, Go Adventures. Sorry about that, folks. Some reason the live stream cut out. We're back with part 2 with Triathlete Pro Steve Croucher. We were just talking about the Ready, Set, Go Adventures USA Triathlon Off-Road National Championship course. Steve is going through the mountain bike course. So if you missed it, that's the end of the part 1. Was going to wrap up, talk a little bit more about the mountain bike course, and then obviously the run course with the special water crossing, and then we'll talk about some training techniques. So I'm going to pass it back to you, Steve.
Are we done with the bike, Dave?
Yeah, I think you covered the bike pretty well. I think you're absolutely right. Getting on the Sitting Bear, It's, I lovingly call it the bonus. Just as you think you've accomplished everything, it's one more techie trail with some really good rock work. There's one lemon squeezer section where you're going uphill, and it's rideable, but it's definitely a challenge. And at the same token, obviously, you've got to save some energy for the run that's to come. So maybe talk about the run, which obviously starts off on the Pump House Trail.
Yeah, I think generally speaking, you're looking at a relatively decent mix of like just above 50% double track, really fast. If you can throw down some quick mile pace times, you're gonna be able to nail that section or those sections. And then you've got parts like on South End that transition, used to transition right into Sitting Bear, but of course now we're coming up Timber and then going up the far end of Sitting Bear. Those are some of your more technical, challenging sections where you've got a lot more punch, a lot more rock to navigate. And again, I'll stress real quick for those people from like the 30 different states that are going to attend this race, like get to know New Jersey rock and try to avoid putting chin to it. Because it's extremely hard and unforgiving. It's unlike any other kind of, technical riding. Like I'm from Vermont, spent, 5 years there. Very, very technical riding. A lot more roots, a lot more slick, spinny stuff where you're just going to spin your tire. Like you crashed on rock in Jersey, you're gonna feel it, which is the fun part. It's challenging.
It is the challenge. It's definitely, and it's amazing how much amazing trails. I mean, for people that are coming out, if they're able to extend their stay, I mean, there is within an hour, I mean, there's got to be 6 or 7 other parks for mountain biking, and each one is decidedly different, much like Yonder is. It's one of the amazing things is that, you have a lot with really, really amazing rock work, but all sorts of things that can challenge and test you. So we highly recommend that if you're able to do that. Maybe talk, I don't know if you wanted to jump into the, we were talking about some dryland training and obviously your background as a master swim coach. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about that. I don't know if you want to transition to some specifics on that.
Yeah, swimming, having a background in swimming, whether it's open water or just club or rec swimming or college, doesn't really matter. The fact that you have, a leg up on other people new to the sport, or even that have been doing the sport for a while, but may have started in their 20s or 30s or 40s, like especially if you've done it as a youth, you have that nervous system wiring that just allows you to remember what it's supposed to feel like. And, I'm not unlike anyone else. Like if I take 2 or 3 weeks out of the pool or, not swimming in general, like open water, I feel it and it's terrible coming back, but I still understand, where my body needs to be in the positioning, my hip rotation and my, head positioning and it all kind of accumulates into that phrase of it's just like riding a bike. Well, it's the same principle in swimming, but you always kind of have to remember certain things. Like I'm always telling myself, today's daily intention for this workout is X, especially when it comes to swimming.
Right.
You can do it for an hour, but do you want to do it for an hour and kind of suffer through it? Or would you be more apt to focusing on, that 1 or 2 key criteria that you can use to swim more efficiently? And I think that more than anything else, open water, if you can swim efficiently, you're not using as much energy. You've got way more in the bank to then cash in come run and bike time. So I've, grown over the years swimming myself, and I was doing some lessons for young kids, which I really enjoy giving back to the kids because, it's just fun. It's fun to see, somebody who doesn't know what they're doing and transitioning into, having more, a lot of fun. And kids typically are having more fun than like teaching adults. They're like, yes, I got that. All right, sweet. Although I really enjoyed, working as a master's coach these days. So I'll be starting that back up here this summer at the Croc Center in Greenville. And, we meet 3 days a week, and that generally is what suffices for me personally to get in the water, to coach, but also get my fix for what I need to do to train for cross track.
What, that's actually a thing about that. So you're saying you think 3 times a week in the water, how much time on the bike, how much running, how do you split up those workouts these days in training and preparing for a race like the USA Triathlon Off-Road Nationals?
Yeah, it's a bit tricky. I think, it's all dependent upon who you are and what your background is.
Okay.
I personally enjoy swimming 3 days a week. And, hour 15 is kind of my top before it's like, okay, I've gotten what I needed to get done. But, other people that are new to swimming, really need that time, and they need to put in some like dedicated, focused miles of technique driven swimming. I think the worst recommendation in the world is to have somebody just jump right in and just go swim 2 straight miles, or swim a 3,500. That's great endurance wise. Like, you probably can do that if you've got an endurance run or endurance bike background, but it doesn't translate to swimming efficiently. So really getting with a coach who's experienced and knows how to, give you some of those tips to swim more efficiently is, I think, a better bang for your buck than just jumping in and pounding out some yardage.
Okay. You know what? Maybe stop sharing your screen just so they have the full view would be great.
There we go. Beauty.
There we go, the side by side. So I think you're right. I think mixing it up and getting enough of a balance. And when we were talking about before we jumped on, the live call, obviously that changed from a May date to now September 13. It's kind of like a reset button, right? Because now you have 6 months. Yeah,
it's kind of a cool opportunity for a lot of people if you're open to A, if you're just optimistic, and B, if you're open to like the idea of hitting the reset button. A lot of people have put in time and like 3, 4, 5 months of winter specific base training.
Yeah.
So to get to May, we'll call it close to May, but we're almost at May, and now you have to kind of do another 8 to 12 weeks, depending on when your first race is, of more base training before you start ramping up tempo and sub threshold and VO2 max training. Like, that's a lot to give. So I think it's definitely a discouraging time for a lot, but if you're open to hitting that reset button and saying, this is a really good thing for me, I didn't get enough base in, like I didn't train over the holidays, or I could use that extra time in the saddle. This is great. And that's how, kind of I'm approaching this season. Is it's not fun to squeeze 5 months of season into like 2.5, 3.
Right.
But I can't control that. It is what it is.
What are you doing, to keep yourself motivated? Obviously, we're all dealing with this, stay-at-home effect, and obviously not being able to necessarily, some people can get on the trails, most people can't swim. What are some maybe 2 or 3 things that you're doing to stay positive and to keep yourself focused on we'll eventually get to is racing and performing?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hit you right on the spot, but I was just thinking about it. Just made me think about that.
It's good. It's again, I think each individual person's unique. So like you have to find your own internal motivation, or you need to lean on the right people or the right stimulus to help motivate you, whether that's, you're stuck still indoors and you're living in Wyoming and there's a lot of snow and you just got hit. There's 0 chance of going out for a ride. Like, you got to find a way to get that work done on your trainer indoors. So like, are you watching ski movies? Like, are you still dreaming about ski season? Are you watching, reruns of like last year's Tour de France? Are you watching the Xterra World Championships that they stream every so often? That's some stimulus. Maybe your coach, if you have a coach and are fortunate to have access to one, maybe they're, a source of motivation for you. me personally, I think it's a good balance of like my coach just saying like, I expect X, Y, and Z out of you. And then everything else is on me. I just happen to be a fairly internally motivated person as it stands. But, I think you have to find that motivation, know what it is. And if you don't, figure it out and then just lean into it really, really hard. Because this is how it's going to be for the next several weeks.
Yep.
Even when they lift like orders and whatnot, that doesn't mean your pools are going to open immediately. That doesn't mean your state parks are going to open immediately. So you can, go run trail or bike. I think it's going to be slower opening in the country than people might like to think it will be.
Yeah, I mean, it's all going to be kind of a wait and see. And obviously, we've been working very closely with the New Jersey State Parks and with USA Triathlon. And they've been very supportive, as a race director, looking at the situation. And of course, we all wanted to race. In looking at it in the conversations, as much as we were hopeful for the May event to still happen, obviously the direction it was going, it was clear that it had to be postponed. And, we're extremely appreciative that together we were able to come up with a concrete date, not just say, oh, it's postponed and give no destination for when that could happen. So we're excited to have it in September. We did make some, I want to make sure everyone knows, obviously, again, that it has been postponed to September 13. For anyone that pre-registered, we've made an allotment that for no charge, we defer to the 2021 race. So if for some reason people can't make that race. And then we also rolled back the price increase to give people some more time. And actually we're doing, in conjunction with USA Triathlon, for about the next 30 days, that there'll be a guaranteed refund policy for everyone that signs up in the next 30 days if for some reason the race doesn't happen. But we're optimistic, and based on what we're seeing, what we're understanding, what we're being told, we kind of picked an ideal time frame that hopefully it'll have gone through this. And, there will be steps that we're going to have to put into place. It's going to be a different race. People are going to have to think about, their race nutrition and hydration and what are they going to take and how are they going to plan their course so that they can have, what they need on the course. I think it's definitely going to be a little bit more dependent on the race, although of course we'll have product from sponsors like Goo Energy. We'll have gels from them again. We'll have waffles and we'll have other products. We'll have Gatorade products. And we're very, very lucky to have those sponsors providing products, but that they're going to have to figure out, so it's definitely that. So maybe you just want to touch on kind of the last thing, and we can always do another session, go a little bit more into specific training, but maybe talk about that journey from amateur to pro and maybe some of your sponsors and kind of how they've come together to support you and develop you, because that's a very exciting transition. I'm really, really happy for you, Steve. Obviously, you've done phenomenally well, not only at various Xterras, at Yonder, at Nationals, and obviously at ITU Worlds, having won an age group championship. So it's a natural progression, and really excited to hear what's going to happen for you. But maybe you could talk a little bit about that transition and how that's going.
Yeah. I think this is kind of the first time that I've really talked about that or had time to reflect on it, because you asked me to think about it beforehand. I just find myself so fortunate to even be in a position, where I physically can do this sport, and, that I also have not just, actual sponsors or product sponsors, but like family and my wife and, my employers throughout the years who understand that this is a really, really big part of, what I identify as. And, it's one thing that I really enjoy. So, that flexibility, I'm going to go hard 100% when it comes to family life when I have that, or, work. I invest my entire self into my work. or if like my wife's going to send me a recipe here soon, like I know I'm going to go bonkers on making that dinner tonight. But when it's time to train and it's time to race and I have that time, I'm going all in. So, I think that's definitely set me up to do well over the years, and it comes with plenty of failure. I'm still relatively new to the sport of triathlon, only doing it probably 7 or 8 years at this point. I can't tell you how many times I've tripped at the end of a race or like around the last bend of an event, just because you get tired, and or the number of crashes that I've had, or just silly things that have happened during a swim, or things that I've forgotten, back at the hotel, like just dumb stuff. Like you're gonna fail and you're gonna go through that process, but it's how you react in the moment to that, and whether or not you choose to change and make the necessary steps to improve upon it in the future. And, again, I don't accept failing twice as an answer.
Right.
So I've always learned from it. So that's really been kind of what's helped me get from, racing in a Speedo, my first race, and like sucking wind in Beaver Creek, and like, oh, this isn't what you're supposed to wear. Okay. And like getting the right bike and working on the right shoes and not running in tennis shoes. And like these things evolve over the course of time. But I've just had very supportive people that kind of see that mantra and that desire and that enthusiasm for this sport. And I think that they've attached themselves to me, and I just couldn't be more fortunate to represent brands that, I believe in. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I don't go all in with somebody as a sponsor unless the product works for me, or it's something that I would use without them being there. Like if I had to go buy something at the store, I would buy their stuff. Right. So I'm pretty fortunate this year. I've got a pretty stout class of sponsors. This year I've joined Team Synergy, which does Synergy wetsuits, and they've branched out to doing some triathlon specific gear, tops, bike shorts, triathlon suits. And I've had a chance to do some product testing the past several weeks, and very, very, very pleasantly surprised and super pumped. So I've actually been doing some open water the past 3 weeks with a friend in Synergy wetsuits, and we are toasty warm down here in South Carolina. And I've got a great nutrition sponsor in GOO. I've got my long-time 7-year running trail running race shoe sponsor in La Sportiva. I've got Custom Performance PT in New York City, and those guys are great for just being a super awesome resource, from coaching to physical therapy to modalities to help improve my body throughout the year. And Julbo, I don't know if you've heard of Julbo. It's a French company.
The eyeglasses, sunglasses.
Yeah, they're
real nice.
Beautiful stuff. And then, of course, my coach, Carson Madsen, runs Mad Endurance Coaching, and been with him for over 2 years now, and just seen just a dramatic spike in performance, recovery, and I can't wait to see what this season holds with him. So it'll be fun.
Wonderful. Well, Steve, I wanted to thank you so much for being our guest on Adventurer Live. It's been a pleasure having you, getting to know you, over the last few years, and having you at the race. Congratulations again on your marriage, on your move, on going pro. And I think that what you described earlier is really a recipe for life of how you look at things. I think that, the sport and doing these sort of events, it really is. It's growth, it's challenge. It's how do you react to things that change? And it's that paradigm shift. It's the world we're living in right now where, people ask me, how are you still an optimist? All these things are happening. Your race has been delayed. So yeah, it's still going to happen. It's going to be successful. I'm going to find a way. And I think that's the thing that you find in this brotherhood, this tribe of athletes that experience cross tri, off-road tri, that it is a whole different sort of level of effort. So Steve, I really appreciate you taking the time. It's great talking with you today, and I wish you all the success for 2020, and I look for a fantastic season. So thank you so much.
Dave, thanks for having me on. And with that date change, I might see you in September at Cross Tri Nats.
We'd love to have you, Steve. Signing off from Race Set Go Adventures, Adventure Live. We're shooting to have another one next week. Thank you all for joining us. And again, this will be up on Facebook, and we will be upping on YouTube as well. Thank you. Dave out.